The night she told me I was nothing, I walked out into a snowstorm with no job, no plan, and no one left. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment my real life finally began. I never thought my life would come to this. Sitting alone in a classified command hub buried somewhere deep inside a federal security complex, where even a single keystroke had the power to shift outcomes, rewrite fates. The room was small, heavy with the stale scent of old coffee and silent pressure. I was surrounded by monitors casting a cold glow, their screens alive with streams of code flowing like digital veins. "Brad, we need access to their server." "You've got 3 minutes, max," came a calm but firm voice through my headset. "Don't worry," I answered, already halfway through bypassing their firewall. Their system didn't stand a chance. I slid past the security nets, paralyzed their command routines, and took control. "It's done. We own the whole grid now." A slight shift in tone came from the other end of the line, subtle but real, almost proud. "Well done, Brad. You've just turned the tide." There was a flicker of satisfaction in me, but it didn't last. A strange emptiness settled in just as fast. The operation had gone perfectly. Not a single hiccup. But even as the others celebrated, I knew exactly what was waiting for me after this. A return to the monotony, to the routine that had become my life's quiet backdrop. I wasn't the hero in this story. Just a guy at a keyboard, a nameless instrument used to catch villains in the shadows. That was my role. And once the adrenaline wore off, all I had left was silence. The team lead's voice crackled again in my ear, but I didn't catch the words. I pulled off the headset and walked out onto the small concrete balcony that overlooked the city. The night air was cool, brushing against my skin. A cigarette burned slowly between my fingers. Below me, the city buzzed with noise and lights. Cars crawling through traffic, the hurried echo of footsteps on pavement. Everyone seemed to be moving toward something. But me? I felt like I was stuck. No destination. No place that felt like home anymore. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking through the fog. I answered instinctively. "Yeah. Brad? That you?" The voice was familiar, warm even. It was Jason, an old friend and fellow agent from the unit. "Yeah, I'm here." "You back home?" he asked. "I am." There was a short pause, then his voice softened a bit. "Hey, I don't mean to sound weird, but I saw something today that made me think of you." Before he could finish, another buzz interrupted our call. It was a message from my son Ethan. He'd sent a selfie, grinning from the backseat of the car, seatbelt strapped tight, and a text beneath it. "Trip to the lake. Mom said it was a surprise. You're coming too, right, Dad?" I smiled. "Of course," I texted back, though he couldn't see the relief and confusion mixing on my face. "Wouldn't miss it. Family trips are sacred." We chatted a bit. He told me about school, mentioned a new friend named Sam who liked dinosaurs and soccer. But something in the back of my mind wasn't sitting right. Melissa, my wife, she didn't do surprises. Ever. She was the kind of woman who planned everything down to the minute. She made itineraries for long weekends. Even our grocery runs had a pre-planned route. So this impromptu getaway? It didn't make sense. That evening, she came through the door carrying designer shopping bags from places we'd never usually splurge at. Her eyes sparkled like she was lit up from inside. "Braddy," she beamed, using the nickname she hadn't said in weeks. "Hi, honey." And just like that, the tension started to creep in. Something was wrong, but I didn't know what yet. She said it with a sweetness I hadn't heard in years, that light, teasing lilt she used back when things felt real between us. Caught me off guard for a second. But only for a second. We were standing at the port, staring up at the cruise ship. It was enormous, towering, sleek like something out of a dream. The kind of place people went to celebrate life, love, new beginnings. But in the pit of my stomach, something churned. That sixth sense I'd learned to trust over the years was screaming. This wasn't just a spontaneous family vacation. It was something else. Something worse. Melissa walked ahead like she owned the place, every step full of purpose. There was a slight, unreadable smile on her face. She held a white envelope, clean, crisp, the cruise tickets tucked inside. We reached the boarding area and she finally stopped. She pulled out the first ticket and handed it to Ethan. "This one's yours, sweetheart," she said with a gentle smile. Then she took another one out. "This one's mine," she said calmly. But then she paused, and what came next made my blood run cold. "And this one," she added, pulling out the third ticket and placing her hand gently on Greg's arm. "This is for Greg." She didn't even look at me. "We've decided it's time to move on," she continued, like she was talking about rearranging furniture. "Greg and I, we're moving forward." Greg, already half turned away, shrugged. "Let's go, Melissa. We've wasted enough time on this drama." And just when I thought the scene couldn't twist the knife any deeper, something happened that threw all of us off. Ethan yanked his hand from hers and took a step back. His voice cut through the air like a whip. "My family is my dad," he shouted, his tone firm and full of fury. "Not you. Not him. You two can leave." Before anyone could react, Ethan stomped hard on Greg's foot. Greg stumbled, clearly not expecting it. "Hey, watch it, kid," he snapped, trying to sound in control but already backing away. I watched it unfold quietly. Because what none of them knew, what they couldn't see, was that I wasn't just some heartbroken husband on the sidelines anymore. No, I had access to everything. Cabin assignments, security protocols, even the onboard network. I wasn't just a passenger, I was the architect behind the curtain. And I knew exactly what was coming. Melissa and Greg had settled into one of the ship's most extravagant suites. We're talking plush king-sized bed, a wall of glass looking out over the open sea, fresh strawberries and champagne on a silver tray. It looked picture perfect, like something out of a commercial for luxury vacations. Greg had that usual smug look on his face, like he'd just won the lottery. He glanced at Melissa, eyes twinkling. "We deserve this," he said smugly. "All of it." Then came the knock. Not a loud one. Just 3 even raps. Greg frowned. "That's odd." He went to the door. No one there. Another knock. Louder this time. Then again. Greg turned to Melissa, uneasy. Must be some system glitch or... And then the speaker in the ceiling clicked on. A voice came through. "Calm. Chilling. Measured. System failure?" I said. "No, Greg. This isn't a glitch. This is the start of a game." Melissa froze where she stood. Her face turned pale like all the blood had drained from it. She knew my voice. And she knew whatever was coming, it had only just begun. "Who's there?" Greg shouted, spinning around, eyes darting in every direction. His voice cracked, laced with confusion and fear. "Who's talking? What is this, some kind of joke?" A quiet laugh followed, low and cold. Not the kind that carried warmth or humor, just the echo of something deeply unsettling. "No prank, Greg," I said, my voice drifting through the suite's intercom. "This is something far more honest. This is justice." There was a pause, a beat just long enough for the silence to thicken, then I spoke again. "Hello, Melissa." She stood frozen, her hands still on the edge of the vanity, knuckles white. "You always thought this kind of ship was for the chosen few, didn't you?" I continued. "Well, good news. You made the list." Suddenly the lights cut out. The entire suite plunged into blackness. A darkness so complete it swallowed everything, leaving only the sound of their uneven breathing, fast, shallow, and laced with panic. Then came a flicker. A dim light emerged from the wall-mounted screen. The monitor blinked once, then came to life, revealing footage. The pier. Just a few days ago. Greg, leaning in close to Melissa, whispering something in her ear. She giggled, unaware of the camera angle. Then Greg glanced back right at me, smirking, like he knew he had won. "Private vessel," he had said back then. "Reserved for the elite." The screen stuttered again. A glitch. Then their faces returned, startled, wide-eyed, trapped. All of it caught on camera. "Live feed," I said calmly. "Enjoy the quiet. You've got a lot of time ahead of you." A soft sound began to seep into the room, a faint hiss like steam leaking from a vent. Subtle but unmistakable. Melissa stiffened. "What's that sound?" she whispered, pressing her back to the wall. "Oh, that," I replied. "Just a small shift in the ventilation. Nothing dangerous. Not yet, anyway. Still breathable. For now. But let's be real, air's a luxury and luxuries don't last forever." That was all it took. Greg sprinted toward the panel near the bed, frantically jabbing at controls, trying to override whatever he thought was happening. The screen shifted again. Now every camera aboard the yacht, hallways, decks, suites, lit up across the monitor, all streaming live to the web. "You've gone viral," I said with a light chuckle. "Congratulations. The world's watching. Say hello to your fans, power couple." Melissa's knees buckled slightly as she stared at the screens. Her expression collapsed into one of horror, watching herself, every gesture, every whisper, exposed. There was no such thing as privacy anymore, not for them. From behind me, Ethan rested his hand on my shoulder. His voice was calm, almost proud. "Do it, Dad," he said with a small grin. "Finish this." And the temperature in the cabin kept rising, slowly, steadily, just enough to make them feel it. Enough to remind them, this was far from over. Greg turned sharply, his expression shifting from surprise to something darker, something cold. "What did you just say?" he asked, voice low and tense. "You heard me," I said, my gaze locking onto his. "Don't pretend you didn't." I took a small step forward, letting the weight of my words settle. "I know exactly who you are, Greg. Every backroom deal you've ever made. Every corner you've cut to build that polished little empire of yours. I've seen the dirt behind the glass. And here's the truth, if I gave you a way out right now, you'd take it. In a heartbeat. You'd walk out that door alone. Because you were never in this for love. You were never a partner. Just a parasite. A coward." Greg didn't answer. His jaw clenched, his lips pressed into a thin, white line. Then I looked at Melissa. And for a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Doubt. Recognition. Maybe even regret. It was gone as quickly as it came, but I saw it. They were escorted off the ship not long after. Clothes wrinkled. Faces drained. Whatever charm they'd carried onto the yacht had crumbled in front of the world. The illusion was gone. All that remained was two people humiliated, exposed, and furious. Ethan couldn't stop grinning. "Dad, that was insane," he said, nearly bouncing with excitement. "I mean, I had no idea you had that in you. That was legendary. You're seriously the coolest." I pulled him close, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. "Sometimes," I said, "the quiet ones just need a reason." A member of the rescue crew approached us. He was tall, maybe in his late 40s, with kind eyes and a knowing smile. He looked at me for a long moment before nodding. "You sure stirred the pot," he said. "She might still believe there's a chance to fix this." I glanced sideways at him and gave a small smile. "Let her think that," I said softly. "But some stories already have an ending. And we both know how this one ends." I thought that would be the last of her, that after everything, Melissa would simply vanish from our lives. I should have known better. She wasn't the kind of woman to walk away quietly. No, she couldn't let go without setting the whole house on fire. 1 week later, I was back at my office when the envelope landed on my desk. Heavy, thick paper. Formal lettering. A court summons. Petition for divorce. Motion to terminate my parental rights. She didn't just want to leave. She wanted to erase me. When the court date came, I stood up slowly from the bench and faced the judge. My hands were steady. My voice even. "Your Honor," I began, "my ex-wife came here today with a script. She's ready for a show, with rehearsed lines and dramatic pauses." I paused just long enough to let my words breathe. But here's the thing about slinging mud. It gets everyone dirty. And the truth always finds its way through. "The thing about throwing mud," I said quietly, locking eyes with the judge, "is that it tends to stick to the one doing the throwing." With that, I opened my briefcase. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled out a small flash drive and walked it over to the court technician. I plugged it into the court's display system. The screen flickered to life behind me. "Your Honor," I continued, "if you'll allow me, I'd like to show you something." What followed was undeniable. Security footage. Dated. Time-stamped. Clear. Melissa standing on the dock. Laughing. Kissing Greg like they didn't have a care in the world. Like we never existed. It didn't need commentary. The truth spoke for itself. That video didn't just tilt the case. It ended it. The ruling came swiftly. Custody was granted in full. Ethan would stay with me. Melissa left the courthouse with nothing. No child, no legal ground to stand on, and not even the illusion of moral high ground. Just her wounded pride. And even that was shattered. I stood outside the courthouse steps, not with a smile but with silence. There wasn't a crowd or a celebration. Just the kind of stillness that follows a storm after years of rain. I breathed in slowly. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in a long time. "Dad." Ethan came running from across the plaza, and before I could react, he threw his arms around me in the tightest hug he'd ever given. "We did it," he said, his voice full of joy. Emotion rose up in my chest. I hugged him back, holding on tight. "Yes, son," I whispered, my voice cracking just a little. "We really did." Weeks passed. One evening, Ethan and I were sprawled in the living room, sitting on the floor, watching an old movie while a half-eaten pizza lay open on the coffee table. The house was glowing, not from the lights but from the life in it. Laughter echoed. Warmth filled the air. I watched him speak, his hands flying mid-bite as he tried to explain a plot twist. That moment was everything. We had made it. Not just through the chaos but into something real. Sometime later, we found ourselves sitting quietly on a secluded beach. The wind stirred the sand gently, and the sky above melted into shades of gold and pink as the sun dipped into the ocean. "This is the best vacation we've had all summer," Ethan said, kicking his shoes off and burying his feet in the warm sand. I didn't answer right away. I just stared out at the waves rolling in slow and steady. The horizon stretched on endlessly, like a promise. In that moment, time stood still. It was the beginning of something new. But that's a story for another day. To all of you reading or listening, thank you for taking this journey with me. If any part of this story resonated with you, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts or your own stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this moved you in any way. Until next time, welcome to Real Cheating Story. I'll never forget the sound of Lauren's voice that night. It cut through the stillness like glass, sharp, cold, and impossible to ignore. The heater buzzed in the background, humming softly, but her words silenced everything else. It was the night before Valentine's Day, February 13, 2023. Outside, the streets were buried beneath a thin crust of snow, and the wind had that bitter edge only February can bring. The scent of frost lingered in the air, mixing with smoke from nearby chimneys and salted sidewalks. Each breath I took came out in thick clouds, and my boots crunched against the icy pavement like I was stomping down every insult she'd hurled at me since the day I got let go. Useless. Pathetic. Deadweight. Her voice echoed inside my head like a broken record. Words that weren't just cruel, they were calculated. It hadn't started that night though. This had been unraveling for months. Back in June 2022, the layoffs at Gregory Corp hit like a landslide. I was right in the middle of it, middle management, middle income, middle-aged, middle of nowhere when it came to importance. I was a logistics coordinator, steady performer, reliable. Even shook the VP's hand once at a holiday event. But when the cuts came, I was just a number on a list. Losing that job didn't just gut my bank account, it stripped away my sense of worth. And Lauren, she didn't miss a beat. It was like she smelled the blood in the water. I swear, the moment she saw me stumble, she went in like a predator. She didn't need claws. Her words did the job just fine. But something changed that night as I walked away from the house. I wasn't running. Not this time. The wind stung my face, snow whipping against my cheeks. I found shelter beneath a pine tree, its heavy limbs sagging under frozen weight. A chunk of icy water slid down my collar, chilling me to the bone, but I didn't flinch. I welcomed it. It felt like something real after months of numbness. The storm picked up, snow falling harder, howling between the trees. My coat was soaked. My gloves were useless. My fingers were burning. Still I kept walking. Each step forward felt like a promise. Not to her. Not to win her back or show her I could be the man she wanted. No, this was for me. I still had something left. Something she couldn't belittle or break. For a brief second, I turned my head, half expecting to see her silhouette behind me, running out into the cold, finally realizing what she'd lost. But there was nothing. Only the shadows and the snow. Let her wonder. Let her sit in that silence and try to understand what it meant. I moved on. Every morning after that, I brewed coffee in the same dented old percolator she hated. The one she threatened to toss every time we cleaned the kitchen. I'd sit down at the kitchen table, open my laptop, and dive into job listings, logistics roles, warehouse ops, shipping coordinators, anything that showed signs of life. At that point, I wasn't holding out for perfect anymore. I wasn't chasing prestige or titles. I just needed a way back in, and I was going to find it. But something about that night stuck with me. Walking out on Lauren, it didn't just feel like a step away from her, it felt like a break. Like I'd kicked open a door I didn't even know was locked. Something jagged cracked open inside me. And through that little crack I could finally see it. I wasn't just surviving her anymore. I was done letting her shape the story of who I was. I flipped open my laptop. The old fan groaned like it was on life support, but it powered on. I pulled up my email. Same mess as always, junk, late notices, spam, reminders I didn't want. Then I saw it. Horizon Enterprises. They were big. Real big. Handled supply chain logistics for some of the biggest names. Walmart, Target, others I'd worked with during my Gregory Corp days. The role? Team manager. Oversee 10 people, optimize daily operations, keep things running clean. That was my wheelhouse. My old turf. I dug out old reports I'd written back at Gregory, spreadsheets I'd built from scratch, crisis plans I'd executed. I pulled up projects I'd led, numbers I'd driven up, costs I'd slashed. Then I started rehearsing. Why had I been unemployed? What did I bring to the table? I ran through my answers again and again until they felt solid. Like armor. By the time Wednesday rolled around, I was ready. Wired. Clean-shaven. Showered. Wearing the suit Lauren said made me look too hopeful. I didn't care. I felt like me again. When the interview started, I didn't sell desperation, I sold reality. You need someone who can deliver results and manage a team. That's me. No fluff, no gimmicks. Just execution. They didn't exactly light up, but I saw it. A flicker. The tiniest shift in their eyes. Maybe it was respect. Maybe interest. One woman leaned in and asked about problem solving. I didn't hesitate. Walked them through a fire drill we ran at Gregory. Real crisis, tight deadline, system crash, team burnout. I laid it out step by step, smooth as if I'd never left the game. Even the guy tapping away on his tablet stopped and looked up. 40 minutes later it was over. Handshakes. We'll be in touch. The usual polite send-off. I rode the elevator down, heart pounding, but for the first time in a long while, my head was clear. I knew. I'd nailed it. And I was right. A few days later I got the call. Carter, the voice said. Come on in. HR's ready for you. I walked through the front doors of Horizon and spotted the bearded guy from the panel. He waved me over. Milo, he said, shaking my hand with a grin. Welcome aboard. Then he clapped my shoulder like we'd known each other for years. Team's waiting. Let's get you settled in. We moved through the cubicles, past the curious glances and whispers from people trying to figure out who the new guy was. My office was small. Nothing flashy. But it had a window, a desk, a working chair, and a computer that actually started without groaning like it was on its last leg. And that was enough. I set my briefcase down slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle over me like dust after a collapse. Then I saw her. Third seat from the end. Coffee cup frozen midair. Eyes wide. Mouth slightly open like she'd seen a ghost. Lauren. There she was, right there in front of me on my team. My stomach bottomed out. For a second, the whole room tilted sideways. The years blurred. Her auburn hair pulled back in that loose way she always wore it. Sharp cheekbones, tense jawline. And that scarf, floral, delicate, the one she used to wear like armor. I hadn't checked the team list. Not once. Horizon was massive. What were the odds? Apparently just good enough to ruin my morning. And then Milo's voice snapped me back to the room. Carter, you good? Everyone was staring. Waiting. Including her. Lauren stood, putting on a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Didn't expect to see you here, she said, voice light but laced with challenge. A test. A hook. She thought I'd rise to it. But I saw it clearly now. It wasn't about patching things up or pretending to be civil. She wanted control. To unnerve me, shift the balance before I'd even begun. I stood, grabbed my briefcase and kept my voice cold and clean. This isn't personal, Lauren, I said. It's just work. See you tomorrow. And then I walked past her, close enough to feel her tense, but she didn't follow. Good. The elevator ride down was silent, but inside I was roaring. She was here. In my space. On my team. I hadn't planned for this, hadn't expected it. But it felt like fate had a twisted sense of humor. And maybe that was okay. Back in the bullpen, Milo was showing me around, rattling off names, departments, shortcuts. I nodded along, only half listening, already mentally mapping out how I'd run this ship. Efficiency was my game. I'd cut waste at Gregory. I'd do the same here. Then Milo said, intro with the team in the conference room at 10. I smoothed down my tie, already running through my opening remarks. I wasn't going to beg for support. I wasn't there to win them over. I didn't need to be liked. I needed to be respected. Once Milo left, I gave myself a second to breathe. I turned toward the window. The city sprawled below, gray skies, honking horns, people rushing through lives they probably didn't even like. And me? I was part of it again. I wasn't just surviving. I was back in the game. In hers. Time to work. From the conference room, I heard chairs shifting, low murmurs as the team wrapped up and started to trickle out. Lauren lingered by the door. Hovering. But I didn't look her way. Not yet. I turned to Milo, asked a quick question about scheduling, anything to keep my focus steady, and didn't so much as glance in her direction. Let her wait. The rest of the day passed in a blur, onboarding forms, system logins, a crash course in Horizon's operations platform. Names, procedures, protocols. Still, even as I kept my eyes on the screen, I felt her. Like a heat wave 2 cubicles over, unseen but unavoidable. Her voice cut through the office hum, talking shop like nothing had happened. Campaigns. Deadlines. Team updates. Her laugh. Even that felt pointed. Weaponized. Every word she spoke grated against me. But I didn't look. Couldn't. Not yet. I knew how she worked. She'd push. She'd test boundaries. Try to bait me into reaction. It was her signature move, Stir, provoke, press for weakness. Fine. Let her come at me. I wasn't the same man who stumbled out of that house in the snow. Later, I boarded the city bus, feeling the low rumble of the engine run up through my spine. It was the end of a long day and all I wanted was silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. You won't last. No name. But I didn't need one. I stared at the message for a second, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I deleted it, leaned my head back and closed my eyes. She didn't know who I was now. Not yet. By May 2023, Horizon had started to feel like familiar ground. The chaos that had overwhelmed me at first was now a map I'd drawn in my own head. I knew the players, the pressure points, the patterns. Logistics was my lane, and I was back in control. Serena, my shipping lead, ran a tight ship. Smart. Steady. But even she began to pause in meetings like something was off. Like she was thinking about things she wasn't saying. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. Lauren's fingerprints were everywhere. Not visible, but smudged across the edges of conversations and glances. She was planting seeds. Trying to tilt the room. Undermine me where she couldn't confront me directly. Then the proof showed up. Tuesday morning. My office. I was mid-report, coffee cooling beside the keyboard, buried in numbers and projections when Milo, beard twitching, face unusually tense, appeared in the doorway. You got a minute? He asked. Sure, I said, straightening up. He stepped in and closed the door behind him. It was serious. He laid it out gently, but the implications weren't soft at all. Rumors. Tension in the department. Concerns about team dynamics. Performance whispers. Anonymous comments. She was getting bold. But that wasn't the part that concerned me most. It was the way some of the younger team members had started to act. Guarded. Nervous. Like they were walking on glass. Especially Jacob. Smart kid. Green but quick on the uptake. And lately always jumpy. So that afternoon I caught him at his cubicle. Jacob, I said casually, leaning on the divider. He startled. Papers slipped from his hands like a stack of cards. You good? He nodded, too fast. Yeah. Just catching up. I didn't buy it. I glanced around, lowered my voice. You've heard the rumors, right? He didn't answer, but the color drained from his face. His hands twisted in his lap. You and Lauren? I said gently. She's stirring the pot. He didn't deny it. Didn't have to. Don't let it shake you, I told Jacob, keeping my voice steady, calm. Just focus on the work. I've got your back. He blinked, caught off guard, then nodded quickly. Thanks, he muttered. I gave his desk a light tap. That cost analysis report, have it on my desk before noon. He nodded again, more sure this time. Later that week it came to a head. Lauren cornered Serena in the break room. Arms crossed, posture tight. I caught the tail end of whatever she was trying to spin, her voice low, sharp, but no longer subtle. Jacob was sitting nearby. He looked up when I walked in, eyes wide, alert. Everyone else froze, watching. I let out a laugh. Quiet. Rough. The kind that comes from the gut when something isn't even worth the energy to argue. You're really trying that angle? I asked Lauren, gesturing around the room. Look around. This team's hitting numbers, real numbers. And it's happening because I'm leading it. Her expression didn't shift, but the tension in her jaw told me everything. You're the one grasping, spreading noise, I continued, voice rising just a notch. Because you can't stand that I came back stronger. That I didn't fall apart. I turned to the others now. Voice calm but loud enough to carry. This is your moment. If anyone here thinks I don't belong, speak now. The silence was heavy, but solid. No one moved. No one spoke. I gave Lauren one last look. That's your game. It's always been your game. But not here. Not anymore. Her silence said enough. Heart pounding, adrenaline buzzing, I rode the elevator down. The city was streaked with late-night lights, smeared like watercolors against the glass. My phone buzzed. Same unknown number. This isn't over. I stared at the message for a beat. Let it hang in my thoughts. Then I deleted it. She could rage in the dark all she wanted. I'd won this one, openly, cleanly, without flinching. But I knew that look in her eyes. That fire wasn't gone. It was regrouping. She'd swing again. July 2023 drifted in like the first deep breath after a long fight. And the structure I'd built? It was holding. The chaos was turning into rhythm. One Friday, Milo caught me near the elevators. His beard twitched as he grinned, clapping me on the shoulder. Caught the latest numbers, he said. K project's a hit. Quiet nod from the top floor. Keep going. I gave him a small nod. Appreciate it. But inside something expanded. A nod from the CEO? That was gold. Lauren's shadow, her noise, her games, started to fade. A little more each week. I heard her voice less. Her name less. And it felt good. Even my apartment, still that tiny shoebox with the lingering mildew, felt less suffocating. Either I was getting used to it, or I was healing. I used to believe what she said. All of it. That I was weak. A burden. A man who lost value the second the paycheck stopped coming. I carried that for too long. But now I saw it for what it was. Her bitterness wasn't my truth. Losing the job at Gregory? Yeah, it wrecked me. But Lauren, she didn't just walk away. She dug a grave and waited for me to fall into it. And maybe I did for a while. But I climbed out. Jobless. Broke. Alone. And somehow I landed here. Now I was a manager. Respected. Running a team that trusted me. And that meant something. I sat on my worn couch, a beer half gone beside me, phone buzzing quietly on the table. I tensed, expecting her again. But it was nothing. Just a junk promo. I laughed sharp dry. Then I saw it. A thin envelope slid under the door. No postage. Just my name, written in her unmistakable slanted script. My gut clenched. I stared at it for a moment. Thought about opening it. Then I didn't. Instead, I turned away, grabbed my laptop, and started working through next quarter's projections. Work was the weight in my hand now. Not her. Jacob's performance stats, Serena's resolve, the team's momentum, that was what mattered. That was the world I lived in now. Lauren? She was just a whisper. A ghost that was fading by the day. I leaned back on the old couch, still creaky, still mine, and let my mind ease into stillness. Freedom didn't announce itself with fanfare. Not for someone like me. It came in the form of a calm, earned slowly. Day by day. Step by step. And yeah, maybe she'd swing back again someday. I knew her too well to believe she'd vanish for good. But I'd be ready. For now. I'd won. The city buzzed quietly outside, lights glowing through my window. I closed my eyes. Memories still surface sometimes. Her voice sharp and cutting, those old phrases like sleet against glass. Useless. Pathetic. I used to carry those words like weights. Let them define me. But not anymore. Walking out that February night hadn't just been about leaving her. It was about shedding a version of myself that had let her voice become gospel. Now, I wasn't loud. I wasn't flashy. But I was here. Solid. And that was enough. Unbreakable. That's what I'd become. And the team? They saw it. Especially Jacob. The kid had changed. Gained confidence. Just yesterday he showed up at my door with a vendor cost breakdown I hadn't even asked for. Saved us a decent chunk, he said, grinning like he'd just pulled off a magic trick. I gave him a nod. Learning from the best, huh? He laughed. That used to be me, young, eager, full of worry. Back in grad school, I was panicking over job prospects like the ground would fall out from under me. But Gregory had been my safety net. I had built something there. And I tried to do the same for her once. Lauren. Back before everything soured, before the layoffs and the venom, I'd slipped her resume through to a buddy in Horizons HR. A favor, simple and clean. Got her an interview for an entry-level marketing assistant role. She nailed it. Got hired. She thanked me once, just once, with a rare softness in her eyes. A real smile. The kind she didn't use often. Then she rewrote the story. Claimed it had been her grind, her hustle. I let it slide. Forgot about it, even buried the memory under shouting matches, passive jabs, silence that grew sharp at the edges. Now I remembered. And I didn't feel anger. Just clarity. I let out a low laugh, the sound rough, bouncing off the glass of my tiny apartment window. She'd been here because of me. And part of me always knew she might return. Not for me but to haunt the places I rebuilt. Spite like hers doesn't just fade. It lingers waiting. But I'd be ready. Not with bitterness. Not with rage. With this peace. This hard-earned, quietly defiant peace. I drained the last of my beer and set the bottle down gently. The glass clinked against the metal railing of the fire escape. Then I leaned forward, elbows resting on the cool steel, watching the lights of the city flicker and shift. Gregory. Lauren. The layoff. The spiral. Yeah, they shaped me. But they didn't own me. Horizon was mine now. The team. The rhythm. The rebuild. I was mine now. I'd fallen. I'd broken. And I'd risen higher than I ever thought possible. All because one night, in the dead of winter, I decided to walk. To choose myself. And that version of me, the man who stood up, alone, jobless, lost? He's the one who got me here.